Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good day. Connie, maybe? Hello, how's things? Okay, ads are running, but you guys are unaffected by that, which is cool. Okay, so they put a update button in. Let's do this. So, starting the week a little behind where I hope to be. Um, I chose to play video games yesterday. Um, I played Mouse PI or Mouse PI for Hire, which is a lot of fun. That's a game with some style, and I played some. What was it called? What did I play? Played mostly that. Played a few other games as well. Um, what was it? Activity. There we go. Mouse PI. I played some Deponia, and I played. I tried to get started on Rise of Piracy, but that got diverted. Yeah, that was so. I chose games yesterday after watching maybe make things. I was like, I can't be this productive. I can't build a pergola and put roofing on it. So I went and played games. So I am behind where I wanted to be. So over the weekend, uh, I just was a productive bee, made new 3D model mount for 3D printing, fixed Twitcher stuff, and played the whole Sunday PUBG. Nice, nice, nice. That's cool. Did you win any? Did you get any chicken dinners? Um, I did have a productive Saturday. I went for a 5 mile walk. Um, got some stuff done around the house, um, and got the design kind of worked out for the release stuff. So I did have a productive weekend overall. But yeah, Marcy, hello. How you doing? So I did start to work through. So this was funny. On Saturday, I'm trying to get this to come together. So this is the kind of release pipeline that I'm talking about, right? So you create a release, you then can look at the release, you can add tasks into that release, you can search for them and find the tasks by identifier, or the idea will be that you can do it by um, initiative or uh, uh, requirement as well. And the dog got upstairs. Um, yeah, you can remove them from the release, etc. So I got this, kind of designed out. But to get here took me. You see, it's on version 13. So I, what I've been doing is I've been using a project in Claude, and I've been kind of describing things and talking through things and having it kind of help me establish my ideas more firmly, and also creating, as I was advised on the weekend, because I started to deviate in my own language, create a glossary so that I can understand what the terms are and I can reference it before asking for something, so I can be online with the ideas, because that many ideas flowing that I'm struggling to keep up with where I'm currently working. So I created this. Hey, I want to do a release, and here's what I want to do. Went through with Claude on this discussion, and then said, okay, can you create me a prompt that I can feed? Um, um, hey, Pickle, how you doing? Um, can you create me a prompt that I can feed? I'm using Figma, Figma Make right now, and I also have access to UX Pilot. I haven't tried Claude design because I don't want to chew through tokens, and also I don't want to change the way that everything's designed so far. So I will try it at some point. I'm not vibe coding everything in my project. That's not the way it suggests it. No, but it said it would use your Claude Max subscription. You get an actual separate usage. Okay, we'll give it a go at some point. So anyway, thank you for the info there. Then, so the reason I didn't want to try Claude Design is because I'm using Figma. I'm paying for Figma. I'm also paying for UX Pilot, and I was like, I'm not starting a different design tool up now, and and having three different suggestions. But anyway, I will give it a go. But so I got the prompt out of Claude. I'm like, okay, I want to feed this into a design, and let's go there. So I took the prompt and I pasted it into Figma, and Figma was like, yeah, okay. It churned on it for a little while, and it's like, here's your design, bling, and it said error, fix the errors. I clicked fix errors, it failed again. I clicked fix errors, it failed again. I clicked fix. I just kept going and going and going. You know, I got up to the version 13. So at version 12, I said, you're really struggling with this. UX Pilot nailed it first time using the same instructions. What can I do to get you over this hump? Version 13 worked. I didn't tell it to fix anything. I didn't tell it to change anything. I just asked it, what can I do? And it gave me the design back, which I thought was funny, that it was challenged by the other UI, the other AI. I Figma and others too, but recently I took my designs and slapped them in and got some pretty interesting results, not trying to pivot you. But it assumes you have what you want working as you need. Yeah. No, I get it. I appreciate the feedback on Claude, on Claude design. But yeah, Figma, so UX Pilot off the same prompt came up with that first go, right? Which isn't overly terrible. Obviously, it doesn't understand the color scheme, etc., but it does get the idea. So yeah, that was funny. That Claude, that Figma was like, yeah, okay. So anyway, so I've started. I have over the weekend been trying to build out all the relevant backend components. So I do vibe code the front end of this application. I hand code the backend. I refuse to let AI near the backend. It is kind of the separator for me. So if it's first time being in the stream, you know, the way this works, there's an initiatives. So initiatives are the ideas. You go to planning and build deliverables. These are the things that you actually want to construct in a way that you want to deliver them. And deliverables are made up of requirements, and requirements consist of tasks. And tasks are the development piece where the developers can task out the actual requirements. And this is the review screen for tasking those requirements out. So yeah, the design is all done using AI at this point. However, the code for the backend is all done by hand. Not to say I haven't used AI in some respects there. I do use AI, like I've just said, in discussion, in back and forth. I've got a project in there, and I'm finding that to be a really effective workflow because I'm getting an understanding of what it is I'm building. Yeah, as do I. And I think that's a very important thing to do, though, to make sure that you know what you're building, how it's being built, what it's doing. If you just let AI do all the work and just produce something, then you are, the one thing I found is you are kind of stuck with AI. You can't easily, we can't easily go back, and you can't easily understand what's been done. So you have to use AI to understand the code that's been produced by the AI. Then you're in a troublesome place. I got a lot to learn. My project is to grow organic because I'm not stopped by any prior knowledge. Yeah. So, but anyway, so today the focus is on getting this release built, right? So that we create a release. Start with essentials, you add tasks next, right? So what I've got to figure out here is where my initiatives, and my releases endpoint is not succeeding. So releases under planning. If we go to the gateway and look at the ARP configuration, I don't believe API planning. API planning. No, not a thing, really. Interesting. Ah, that's why. Because I sub-route it. Okay. Deliverable items route, requirements items route. So this is another planning cluster. This is just this is useful to do it this way, because what happens is if I decide to split something out, I just change which cluster it points at. So if I move, I say, oh well, tasks belongs in this other thing. I can create that other thing and then just move the route, and then the front end route looks no different. So this is releases, and this heads towards the planning cluster and looks for releases, and then everything works. So there we go. Okay, so this should work now. So what's the most ambitious project you've built using AI so far, Keikle? I do think that the adoption of AI has become, how do I put it? I do worry that if these tools become, because we hear constantly about the cost, we hear constantly about the resources. Computers are becoming harder and harder to buy because of the memory shortages, and until the company actually figures out how to make more efficient hardware that actually deals with AI specifically, we might have a point at which it becomes too expensive to run. What do we do? What do those engineering teams do that have been completely AI focused? That have never, their engineers actually aren't real developers. Um, they are just people who know how to vibe code something. What do you do in that event? 404. Oh, there you go. Could not find part of path. What? You don't think that's going to happen? I would like it that companies made more efficient software so we can use the old hardware. No, I think we're more likely to get a AI specific hardware, kind of like PhysX was. I think we're going to end up with more AI focused hardware, kind of like the Bitcoin mining went to ASICs. The big problem with that though is this evolves so quickly. What do we do? You know, but we'll see. You can actually start this time. Wow, Delta, thank you very much. Thank you very much for 30 months. Appreciate it. And good morning. Feels like longer. Well, you've been around for a very long time. So you're coming up on being around here for 7 years. So your follow was June 2019. So yeah, fast approaching 7 years of of watching this. Okay, so that's looking like that's working. So hit create, planning, API planning releases. I'm 1 in 403, by the way. I am actually expecting a 403, not a 404. That's why I'm API planning release. Hold on. Ah, um, child right. So the top level route. I gathered those TDD scripts together. I think I present them in the AI share out water code today, but I don't know. I have misgivings. Like, will I stop working on these scripts in like a week? Not sure. Actually, prompts. Eh, if you don't present it as I'm actually working on them, like I'm experimenting with an idea, if nothing else, sharing an idea might spark someone else to do something, right? So it can be useful both ways. Come on, dog. Come lay down. Come on. So there you go. So that should now, let's do this. Q2 2026. So I think ideas don't always have to have a there we go, 403. Okay, cool. Okay, so now if I go to here, settings, users, Alan, create releases is now a permission. So now we should save that. We have to give that a second though. Adding tests to legacy code, finding missing tests in legacy code, and TDDing a project from the start as the 3 scripts so far. Well, yeah. I still feel the sheer amount of code that AI can generate is partially why we embrace it, but I still fear that the amount it produces is still going to bite us. Make an architecture design section also, but that would be huge because I'd want it to be able to give tips and tricks on a variety of architecture. Again, like I'm comfortable with my usage of AI at this point, right? I think that I am a good balance of I have a good balance, not I am a good balance. I have a good balance of understanding to productivity. I know I could be faster. I know I could produce a lot more code if I just embraced AI on both sides of Kaizu. However, I feel that going at this pace, I am putting the right checks in place. I'm making sure I'm aware of what's happening. Things are not getting away from me. Because if the number of things you have to do to get a piece of data to go through from here to there, right, to go full circle, there's a lot of moving parts. If I have AI do them and it makes a mistake or it does whatever, I'm going to be tracking things down for weeks, right? So or I'm going to send the AI into some sort of spiral. Again, this took 13 attempts to get there, and in the end, it took me challenging it by telling it another AI was going to do it better. So I wonder with adding test one if I should generate with AI comment in each of the tests. Eh. So I get into another question. If something goes wrong in the code, who is responsible, right? And I've asked that before, and I continue to ask that. So does it matter? Is my question there. That wasn't an exclamation, was it? So if you generate some code, does generate it with AI make the difference? Because you actually should look at the test, review the test, validate the tests. So you should own that process, right? Um, um, you have to own it. So yeah, does it actually matter? My coworkers are writing strange tests. AI is writing strange tests. In the end, it doesn't matter who it was. It just needs to be fixed. Without AI, I would not be able to deploy my vision model on the edge devices. But downside, it takes me longer to adjust the AI generated code compared to DIY code. Well, you have less overall understanding of it, so you have to spend time digging in if you want to make changes, or trust that you know enough about what it does to explain to the AI to fix it without worrying about the AI breaking something else. So again, I think it's still smart of us to make sure we understand what it is we're being having done for us. During the test code is fine. The TD from scratch won't be. It would matter. I agree with Canny. Don't tell him that. Okay, so I've waffled enough to make sure that this should have made it full circle now. So we should have a permission now. Actually, I can do the right thing here and check. So those permissions have to percolate through the system. Once you change it, the permissions get added and registered in multiple places. So yeah. So permissions, planning, release, create is there. User permissions, right? So all my permissions list are there. Now, what happens is when I make a request to the server, right, the first one will always go off and authorize me, sorry, and that gets cached. So if we go in here, you see there's no cache. So I create release Q2 2026 release. Don't need the word release. Alan is the owner on June 26th. Oh no, we got 500, but we got there. We were allowed to get there, and that's what matters. The rest is not surprising. No suitable constructor was found for the type release. The following constructors release create parameters. I tell them directly when the tests are strange at all. I'm very direct with feedback, otherwise they won't learn. I even praise the AI sometimes. I mean, a lot of comments and PRs are suggestions instead of must fix to a detriment. I think. I don't know, it's in an effort to not rot the boat. Important guy, hello. How you doing? I get what you said. Detriment. Yeah. Um, I think that's another problem with PRs being, you know, they seem to be commonly a problem in the workflow, right? Because they end up being right at the end, and people are worried about getting them in there, and that makes us nervous to actually push back or change things because we didn't do enough planning or prep or review beforehand. Yeah. Awake and exhausted, more JS bug fixes. Might be an issue with no hierarchy in my case because all devs are at equal level. So how do you break ties? I think that's very much depends on the stability, the mentality of the peoples. The more stable, the more direct you can be without breaking them. Note that only mapped properties can be bound to constructor parameters. No suitable constructor was found for the type release. The following constructors. I think this is a side effect of another problem that, again, interesting. So I was experimenting with something here, and I think this is bitting me back. So release, release, release. So in the planning area, no domain, entities, release. So we have a lot of parameters, and then I have a release create parameters. Oh, that's why. Yeah, that's why. Private I didn't do the thing. Entity framework won't construct one. It doesn't know what these are. If you pass parameters, it works fine. But on the other hand, I'm soloing my project right now because the other people wasn't very stable. It doesn't speak for my approach. You're solo because the other people weren't stable? You mean stable as in they weren't good and they got fired? Or you got rid of them because you were like, I can do this on my own? I chug 4 months to count a monster. Well, that's not a good idea. That's not a very good idea. Non-nullable field. Yeah. Okay. So if we do name equals null, state equals null, phase equals null, I believe that fixes it. This is an interesting one. I think this is an entity framework thing. I was experimenting with this before because I'm getting to the point where there's a lot of parameters that are initializing the object, and the structure of the design is a little strange in how it constructs the object. So yeah. They're plenty stable, but humans are kind of rational to begin with, and I'm not sure I want to push my opinions too hard as a result. Well, there's a difference between opinion and guarding the quality and of the code, right? So mental stable, they didn't like that I was nagging on any bug on any error, even before the PR was merged. I was very precise with the code that it matched all standards. Canny's point. And that's why PRs become, okay, we'll fix it next time, or it slows us down, it prevents the release. And I think a lot of that can be avoided up ahead. One of the things I really want to get into is architecture tests, especially in this application. Because I would bet if I put an architecture test in, I'll find all the contradictions. Like, again, that would become an architecture test to say, if I've created an object, I've passed an object to a constructor to try and avoid the warning that is given of too many parameters, which you solve by creating an object to wrap up the parameters, by the way. Then creating a private constructor is necessary because entity framework can't construct one with the object. Because entity framework, because it goes to rehydrate it. So yeah, a big part of the reason why I don't push buttons on a fight is my coworkers' solutions are frequently better than mine. It's probably better than a toss-up solution workout. Frank, good morning, happy Monday, and thank you for the luck. And Canny, thank you for the luck. I appreciate it. Your co-workers' solutions are frequently better than yours. Not actually measurable. There you go. Release created. Q2 2026 is ready to be defined. So that was the problem. So again, that's an architecture test, right? That is an easy thing to forget. And if someone doesn't test it and that comes to a PR, no one catches it, that causes a problem. So, I want to, making testing and integration testing a part of the definition of ready could definitely help there. There you go. There's our release. They have more domain knowledge. That's the main reason. Well, domain knowledge doesn't always mean their solution is better. It just means they understand the compromises as well. Okay, so we've got a date added. We've got a target release date. We're defining and we're in development. So this is one of the areas that probably will change quite a lot as I go forward. But I need to do something, right? I need to get some idea of, where the pain points are. So I'm not trying to overthink it, and that's one of the key directives I've given Claude in the conversations back and forth over this, right? I want to be opinionated, but enough opinions to trigger thoughts when people start to test this and start to use it. So a release phase, right? So the phase is the phase that this actual release is in. So it's defining, and defining can move to stabilizing and cancelled. Stabilizing means we've got all the things, we're just trying to make sure the release is ready, and we're preparing for it, right? And that can move to release to cancelled, however frequent you want them. That's still you choice, right? If you make them monthly, or you want to make them weekly, or you want to make them quarterly, that's up to you still, right? And then stabilizing can move to released, and stabilizing can move to cancelled, because you could abort a release at any point, right? And then released is released. You can't change it. You can't go back. You can't go forward. So those will not allow you to transition. Yeah. So the idea right now is you can create a release and it be, there's a target release date, right? And I'm not even right now tracking actual release date. We're not going that far ahead. There's a lot of things I'm not doing. So did that make it? Let's just see how good if I got it accurate. Ooh, I didn't. Tables, notification outbox. This should have had a release. Yeah, release identifier. Then did this get an actual message out there? Release integration event. Yeah, we published everything. So everything got to Kafka. What we're going to start to see here is a screen of the releases that are pending. So you could schedule a release, right? You could schedule the next 2 releases. And as you go through, you could add tasks and stuff into them. Yeah. So anyway, release phase and no, that's a different. We got to move that by object, and then deployment state. So deployment state is not deployed, development, staging, UAT, production. Right. I haven't set transitions on these yet. Predicting what goes in a release is a thing as well. Specifically, we will deliver X on a Y date. Well, yeah. Move, but that's fine. That's fine for now. Okay, so we have that part. Do we have? So we got the release integration event. So on the view side of things, where did it fail? Receivers view. Oh. View infrastructure receivers. Come on. There we go. Okay. Unknown topic or partition. Consumer for releases failed. Subscribe topic is not available. Okay, so we've got to stop that running and go over here. Topics. There we go. There's a message. So, sorry for the bright white screen. So the release is there. You see how it says 1 on 1? That means I didn't manually create this one. So any one that says 1, the system has created to fill in the gap that I've left, right? So you can turn that off. You can say it shouldn't create them automatically. But by doing it this way, it means that I see the ones that I'm missing. So, yeah. So now this should pick that up, because now the topic exists when the view starts up. So we'll go here to release receiver. So it was looking for the right topic. So it's got that from console. It's said, hey, I care about the release integration event. Where's the topic for that? What's the topic for this? And now it pulls that out. So once this starts, we should see that hit the breakpoint. We're walking before what? No worries, Delta. Have a good one. If you've never been in the stream before, you're always welcome to ask questions. If you have opinions on what I'm doing, if you want to understand more, the stream is not about me coding. The stream is about me sharing what I'm doing, and I'm happy to talk about that from any direction there. So what I'm doing right now is the planning piece where the release has been created, that is being produced. The event is being produced from there, and I'm onto Kafka to say, hey, a release has been created, or rather, here's a release, and then that will go to the view receivers and then publish to view. Eventually, I'll put the entity update in there so that I can say, hey, this changed, so then we can signal our notifications that this thing happened. And then GraphQL is querying it. So I need that breakpoint to be hit. Now, what's probably happened, and I've been having a few issues with this, is come way down. Come way down, Taylor. No, come way down. Oh, we're going to cry now. I'll be right back. Okay. Well, why does that keep going over there? Okay. For some reason, OBS, when I minimize it, comes back to this monitor. Okay, so this event is not hitting. So what we'll do is start the view receivers, and then what we'll do is bring this out here so it's not quite the bright screen. And then we'll give that a second to shut down. So this will eventually, once it realizes that the back end has gone away, these all stop. I can't touch this topic until they're stopped. Consumer groups. Come on. So the way this is going to work, while we're waiting for that to shut down, is you are going to see the releases that are pending. We'll then go into them and be able to add the tasks that are associated with that release, right? So that will both, this is one of those scenarios that will actually fire off two messages, right? So the first one will be, hey, associate this release to this task. So we'll be able to show that on the task. Do I need to do it that way? Yes, we do. So we need to tell the task you're associated with the release. And then when we get confirmation that we've done that, we'll then update the release and say, by the way, you've got this task. That will allow us to recreate somewhat if things break. Actually, do we ever need to assign? If we do it that way, do we actually ever need to assign on the releases side? We might not need to. So what I'm thinking there is my instinct is to have a collection on the releases side that is release tasks. And what I've just said is that I'm going to update the task to tell it which release it's actually attached to. If I do it that way, when all the data comes back together, which is the view side of things, then I know which tasks are associated with the release, because I'm going to have to go and get the release ID for each task, and then I'm going to be able to say, go and get me all tasks for this release. So I don't necessarily need to create the association on the release side at all. It's all task focused. Again, this search will involve a bit more than just searching for tasks. You'll be able to search by the ID for the task. You'll be able to search by the initiative. Yeah, so we're got a bit more to do there. Yeah. And I decided to do this now, by the way, because I think this visualizes the idea a lot better. I was really, really tempted to get to the GitHub piece. Now I've got all the relevant components in place to do it. So I can create a GitHub integration and you can see, oh, this is this task. But I realized that I'm not really quite ready to do that just yet. I think this will show off some of the idea, and then when we do the GitHub piece, it will hit a little differently. It'll show the idea a lot more clearly. And also allow me to validate it, right? It's not just about it process the mask. I don't know why. I've got that set to, if it fails, to not update the offset. Oh, I know why. I know why. I think. Auto, it's what is it? Auto commit false, I think it is. How do you do that? This is Kafka, not Kafka extensions. Yeah, it might be Kafka extensions. Forgive me for talking to myself. That is that setting. These are actual, this can take all regular Kafka things. So what this says is if this fails, it won't auto commit. It's a little quirky still. But basically now that won't commit until I tell it it's committed, which means a message could be pending while it processes stuff. That could actually create some overlap potentially. I don't think it will do, but yeah. But I'll be right back. Gotta get the dogs in. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So yeah, there we go. We got our message now. Let's go there. F10, F10, F10. Okay. Oh, come on. There we go. It failed. Okay. Duplicate key violates constraint. What? I mean, that's good, but that means I processed it the first time. Releases. There you go. Okay, it got there. I just missed it. I'm going to have to stop that again and restart everything again. Okay, so let's see how much we have. Again, if you have any questions, thoughts, opinions, please feel free to share. I stream a couple of times a week doing this. There's a Discord linked in the cards below. You're more than welcome to join there and ask any further questions you want. If you're interested in this side of software development, feel free. Okay, there we go. So now what we'll try and do is, what is it called? What's it called? Brain. GraphQL. What's the tool called? Strawberry Shake. I can't remember the name. Chili cream. Nitro, that's what. That's why I can't remember the name. It's just everything. Everything's Nitro. What we'll do here is, oh, we need that. We'll go to the application, get our token. Okay. What I want to do now is see how much of the actual wire up I did. Because I did do a releases thing. Yeah, releases. Query. Releases. ID. Identifier. Name. Yeah, there you go. Unexpected execution. That's a little less than expected value. Services. Why is it doing this? It's like it's hiding the fact that there's other services. So if I go to here, see everything's running. Oh, that's not good. Okay. That's hilarious. So remember that setting I just made of the partition, the because it's erroring now, it won't move on from that one. So that's funny. that's that's okay. We got to wait for that. We got to understand why that failed, not that failed. Why that failed. Releases is a thing. I've bound it up, but so there's a few things to that, and I expected to hit this. So there's an endpoint for releases, and that's get all releases where. Now releases in this context is the view release, right? So this says, hey, I've got an owner, I've got a created by. This is hidden. This is hidden, or should be hidden. View type, release type, yeah. So owner ID or descriptor dot ignore x dot created by user ID. Right. So we should have created by user. We should have owner, etc. Yeah, we should be able to get all those working. However, that's off the view. So that would be configuration view. No definition for release view configuration. That's your problem. Let's do that. So release view configuration of release, and this would be releases view. There is a view. The reason I'll lean heavily into views is it is a way of consolidating some of the information into a more usable form from the GraphQL side. It helps kind of join some of the tables together and deliver a more palatable result. Also, by default, you don't have writes on there. So even if someone was to try and manage a mutation in some way, shape, or form, they're against the views. They're not against the actual database tables. So it would be a lot harder to deal with from my experience so far. And thank you for the follow, ISP. Welcome in. That's tables, releases, view. So our view works. So using entity has many. Deal with that for right this second. Let's go with that. That will get auto loaded by here. We have apply configurations in namespace, so it will actually just load these configurations. That's a a method created because they all live in the same. So the write and the read side of the view aspect are all lumped together. So it's important to remember where you are. Let's move this one on now. We should be able to change this now. Releases, edit, latest. Okay, so we've changed the offset. So it's actually put a unique constraint on the identifier, which means that when I go to process it again, it just errors. But that will leave that consumer potentially errored. I made some design changes so it won't rip every other consumer down, and by using that behavior, that auto commit, means if it does error, that message can still be processed next time it starts up, which is a big thing I've been missing for a while. So yeah, if not Terry. Hello, welcome in. Right. Okay, so let's see if this works a little better now. This must be a change in Rider. Right now doesn't load every single project in here. It leaves it to the management of here because this is definitely working. Um, that's strange. Either way, run that. Nope, still errored. Unexpected execution. And again, I've got to use view. Okay. At least it is erroring. View. Come on. Column tenant identifier does not exist. Did I not put that in the view? Yeah. Tenant underscore identifier. So let's make sure the object matches the actual thing. View domain entities. Not I want this one. Release. Module, good morning. How are you doing? Tenant identifier. Hi, I'm Spear. A little mix these days. The backend code, all this is hand coded. There's no AI generation in here. This is all hand coded. The front end right now is pretty much all AI generated to help me speed up being able to do the hand coding myself. Yeah, and that is a choice. I don't want the AI near the code on the back end. I want total control over this because this is the piece that I want to learn the most about as I go. You catch on to Mary Jo with a 40 million tokens. You know, I've been a developer a long time, but this project is basically about becoming more comfortable with distributed systems design and the structure and the tools I have available to me and the techniques I have available. So that's where I focus my energy. So the back end is very much important to me, and it's the area I'm the most comfortable with. So yeah, I realize I could make things go a lot faster, but I'm happy where I am. So yeah, we'll go with microservices. It's service based. We'll start there. So this is what it looks like. So micro actors. Uh, Microservices, I feel, is a term that I'm not wholly comfortable saying because these are kind of large. These are bounded contexts. These are domains, whatever you want to call them. These are components, as I put it, most of the time to avoid the word of microservices. These run many services potentially. These kind of encompass a component of the system. Client through a gateway. We use auth inside of there. CQRS, we are writing data through these systems. They then publish their data to Kafka, and everything below Kafka here gets to process that work. Whether it be calculating changes, whether it be deciding if people need to be notified about changes, and also the view side of the house, building a GraphQL API in front of the view, so the client can query it. I'm a big fan of writing code that feels right. So a lot of my design doesn't necessarily fit a pattern. So I kind of evolve. I've actually been reading a few books recently, and the way they describe it in the book is this is more service than microservice, which I get. Yeah, there's a lot of mediator in here from a patterns perspective, but there's a lot of events. There's a lot of event-driven stuff in here. Yeah, so I think our usage of some of those terms starts to conjure opinions on how it should work. That's why I get stuck when I'm trying to describe it. Why is that failing? So that is failing because, yeah, if you have any questions, thoughts, opinions on what I'm doing, if you feel that I'm mistaken in how I'm doing something, this stream is always open. I'm always open to learning, right? So I don't want to say I know everything. I don't. I want to be better. I want to grow, and I think you grow by opening your mind to people being able to criticize or, I mean, constructively, or help explain your vision so you maybe align on a term, etc. Yeah, done right enough to me. Yeah. Well, again, I say module because if you go to planning, planning has this piece. Oh, planning shouldn't have that piece right now. Ignore that piece. But tasks has an API service here and a receiver service here, macro services. I mean, again, that book I was describing recently described as service architecture, which fits more with this. But then microservices is what people conjure up when they think about, how they should work. These are not little pieces themselves. These are kind of big pieces that cover the features. So there's an API, but this component has two sides to it, right? This will, rather, what I should draw here is another arrow because this does receive now, right? This has receivers as much as it has publishers, right? So there's two sides to this. The notifications piece has a production piece as well as a receiving piece, right? So there's all sorts of components over there. But either way, that is what I'm building from a technical perspective. What I'm actually building is a product management tool to allow a team or an organization to define their goals, be able to set out their plans, and be able to drill down into what it is they're building from a requirements perspective, and then allow developers to capture that, review those things, build out the relevant tasks from a technical perspective to what makes up a requirement, and then work through that in terms of the boards, work through that, actually execute that, and then what we're focusing on right this second is the ability to create a release and define which pieces of work go into a release. So we can try and create the entire transparent pipeline. So micro, in my opinion, is misleading. It's really about being independently deployable and sufficiently decoupled. Yes. Yeah, I agree. Capturing requirements, tracking through release. Oh, we don't do that here. Yes. And yes, I realize there are tools available to us to do this. I just don't like those tools. And I'm trying to make it opinionated enough that it is easy to follow, but flexible enough that it is usable. Overall, the concept is one of visibility and communication without words, without speaking and meetings, right? So the concept is one of, here's an initiative, and eventually there'll be more visibility into what's going on in the initiative. Here's the initiative. Here are the deliverables that have been lined up for this. So you can again see the number of requests, the requirements have been added. Eventually you'll see the estimate, whether that be points, hours, light years, whatever you want to put in the system, it will capture a number. And it will try and give you some idea of whether these are on target, right? So requested timeline, it will take actual execution time. It will eventually, this is something I have planned to test, it will take the actual execution time and based upon the estimates, kind of put a risk to that number without translating it to, oh, they've got 14 hours left by their estimation, but they're way behind. They just say, you know, this deliverable piece is at risk. Just to try and highlight, to make conversations happen, really. You know, if a requested timeline, you know, this one's overdue, then this one's, you know, behind schedule, very badly behind schedule. Where are we with this? You can go and see it from this perspective. From the product management perspective, you can see the requirements you've laid out and the tasks there, any discussions that have happened, attachments. The intention is to put meetings and stuff in here and capture them, and also any dependent deliverables. And again, overdue. This screen here will give these risks. Again, risk will be the next review date and how much progress has been made towards the next review date with how many tasks have been completed. And again, review date itself, this screen will actually move to the in progress one, right? The risk won't appear on the backlog because there's no risk in the backlog. Well, it's backlogged. The review date means that you're needing to review it to deliver, to plan it. So defining ready for review will show up in here. So now when your market is ready for review, developers can come in here whenever they want and see what they've got coming up. This will be filtered via the projects they're associated with, and they can add tasks as a team exercise, is the goal here. So you kind of get the product manager in, go through the description of why and how is what's defined in the tasks. So yeah. Recently introduced, so a lot of these you'll see the little dash. I recently introduced the unique identifier or the reference, which you can copy. So yeah, so what I'm moving towards is actually defining the actual release stuff so that we can then walk through an actual cycle of here's an initiative, here's the planning, here's the implementation, here's the delivery, and here's the actual release. And if I can do that myself, that's when I'm going to push this software to a testable environment for everyone else to play with. That's the plan. So, yeah. We have a release, but we do not have... Why don't we have a release? I don't see where that's missing. That's a problem. Let's go with this. Select ID, identifier, tenant identifier. Hold on. Select star from releases view. Let's see if we can do every field in here. ID, tenant identifier, identifier. Oh. I'll just put them in the same order, right? Name, owner ID, target release date, phase, state, created by user ID, date added, last updated version. That looks like everything to me. The tenant identifier there, doesn't need to be. No, you definitely don't want to what, do you? Column R tenant identifier does not exist. My thought there, tenant identifier does not exist. This one, oh, no, tenant ID, that's fine. Dukesoft, did I say hello? I apologize if I didn't. I thought I did, but I think I was talking about stuff, so my apologies if I didn't say hello. You did not. Well, my sincere apologies. If you are interested in large application development and AI of late, I do highly recommend checking out Stone Eagle. Been developing No Mercy, which is a media server, or the effortless encoder as it's termed. Basically, an application to create your own Netflix. So media you own, you can rip and store, and then use a Netflix style interface against your own media, music and movies, etc. And he develops that on stream sometimes, spaghetti included. But he's a big user of AI these days. He's used Claude to speed up a lot of the development. But that is a very refined use of AI. So I'm struggling here to understand which piece I'm missing. That's the problem. So our query here says get the release. This uses the releases and it requires tenant identifier to do this part, right? So the unexpected execution is very unexpected from my perspective because tenant identifier does not exist. On what? So let's go and look at one of the other. We'll get there. I mean, that could say house key. Okay, goes to data identifier. I don't need, in terms of the view, I don't need that field. That's fine. Identifier is enough to be unique, and we've already got a unique constraint on it anyway, so that's fine. The concerning part is it says that, and this is the view object, right? This is not the, oh, hold on. There's the problem. That'll work now. Is the problem with having a model that I use to insert into the database and a model that I use to query from the database all in the same collection. That is definitely an area of the system I want to review. Again, one of the advantages of designing the system this way is if I want to use this for now and use it against this, later on, if I want to create a completely different view and I have a different design, I can go and build that in parallel and then build something to test it without ever affecting anything and have it I can have it move to production long before I get ready to test it, because then I can have that constantly consuming the same Kafka data that the production system does, that the regular view system does, and I can create a new system in parallel. That is a great advantage of doing this way. I can bring up new components. I can deprecate existing components in parallel without actually changing the existing components or trying to break them. And I think that gives a lot of maintainability. Oftentimes systems decay, not because we want them to, but because we have to go in and change things, or new requirements come along that we can't easily support, so we try and fit them in, but that doesn't necessarily work against the exact design of the original code. So there's an option if you're going to build something new. If there was well, we don't want to use GraphQL. We think there's better use from APIs here than GraphQL. So let's create an API-based system that is achievable. Permissions throughout the system are tracked as well, so the view side has its understanding of the permissions. So when I go and check that box in the users, right? I'll take a second. System starting up again. When I go and check this box here, that gets filtered through everything. So when you are, logged in, you're good. How you imagine the front end being disconnected from the actual change? UI sends a command and gets an OK back, but behind the scenes, it's async message pumped to a view. So UI just optimistically update and then update if the way. Yes. So that took a little, it's still a work in progress. So the UI is built to be optimistic, right? When I save something, so when I actually create something, right, if I go in and create a planning item, or I create a deliverable or a task, I get the identifier of that object back. So I know I can track it. So if I make changes to it, I can still reference it. I store all the data that you set against that entity on the client and assume that it will be back in a second, or it will be back in a minute, or whatever. If you refresh, you'll see that break. And that's not an uncommon pattern. In the backend side of things, you'll see this entity updates. So when the view receives that and has saved that in the view, that will then publish another message to Kafka to say that an entity update has happened for this entity, and that will get processed by a little SignalR hub, which then pushes down to the client and says, by the way, this got updated. That allows me to push in changes. If someone else updates that object before your changes go, there is a version check as well, so it will return a conflict and handle that out. So there's a lot of patterns to play with here still. There's a lot of design that I need to work out. But overall, that's how it's working. And again, it's a primary reason. Apparently I got a follow that I didn't see, but thank you very much for 1,400 followers. Part of why I'm designing the system the way I am is to try and understand some of these things, to understand these challenges, to understand how I might overcome them, because that's the experience I'm not going to get in a day job. If I get this problem in a day job that we've not seen, the likelihood is a production issue, and I'd rather have the experience of doing it by hand. Now, what if both changes happen at the same time? That's a common problem. All I can do there is try and use role-based locking in the database. I can try and use techniques to prevent two users from touching the same objects at the same time. There's no guarantees. I have seen unique constraints in databases broken because something hit at the exact same time. So there are no 100% guarantees, but you kind of program for the most feasible scenarios and make sure that your exception handling and logging can track the stranger ones. Lyhux, thank you very much for the follow, and I assume you are follower 1,400. Thank you very much. So, okay, I think, there you go. So there's our name, there's our owner. So owner has ID identifier and name. Our created by user has ID name. Which is most scalable fall on its face. People drag the instance slider and never think about the consequence of two APIs interacting with the same data at the same time. Isolation. Um, yeah, it's a challenge. So for me, I query the object out. I try and get the version. If two people hit it at the same time, I actually do have, and I still want to learn a little bit more about it. So akka. So the most likely conflict side of things is the changes piece. And this is a piece I need to go back over. So rather than calculate what changed in the individual components, again, my focus is on get the data and get out of there, right? So get the data in and get out of there rather. So my primary concern is saving the data the user sent me first. That's what I focus on. Can I save that data? So there's some validation, but there's not a lot of uh, system consistency checks here. There's the assumption that, if you're being given a GUID for a user, that user exists. There's a lot of those assumptions in here. So I focus on saving the data I've been told to save, and then producing events as a side effect of that commit to the database to react to those things internally. So the design is one of, if I go to planning, application, let's go to release. This is the one we've got right now. So that's creating a release, right? So we have the bare minimum information, we save the release, and we move on. You can see there's no publish to Kafka there, there's nothing there, but that happens. So what happens is when you create this, a domain event is queued, and on commit to the database after saving those changes, so those changes are saved to the database, an event gets fired into Mediator, and now I have a release created subscription. So I can have one or many here. And this one in this case says, okay, now go pull that release back out with its details, so any associated objects, and now publish that release. So that goes to Kafka. So now the system's reacting to that. So that's kind of a fundamental design of this application, is that eventing and focus on that. However, that doesn't mean I couldn't get a lot of conflicts on the changes side of things, right? I could get a lot of things coming for a lot of different objects from a lot of different ideas. So one of the things I introduced on the, I think it's this side, yeah. I started to play with akka. So a message comes in, and I still call it a planning item in here. That's how out of touch this piece is. But the idea is, this will go and find this, and I use um, Mongo as the backing store for this piece. And do I have this item? Yes, I do, or no, I don't. And if it's published new, I go and validate once more, because again, the way akka works is the messages are all queued, right? So you have distribution, but it's kind of like um, a queue for every single action. So the system can tell the story, but you have to know that the message is going to get backed up. So you kind of got an internal queue with that distributed nature. So it's a system I definitely want to lean more into and learn more about. And again, I'm using this as a tool to learn those things, to understand those things. So this says, oh, you actually do have a planning item, but you shouldn't have had one. So I'll go back and tell my sender. So that just moves it back to the end of the queue. And now I can go and add the deliverable, and I can now publish the change event. And this piece goes and actually publishes a message, say, yep, this changed, and here's what changed about it. So I'm using that system to kind of push out, here's the things that actually changed. So that's down here. So yeah, I've learned into akka a little bit and want to learn more. But I can see how that solves that a little bit, IronSpear. Anyway, we have the ability to do a release, target release date, and I think that should be it. Let's see if we can get a screen in. Confirmed. What is the tool you're using to do HTTP queries? This tool? This is a GraphQL. Um, if I need to do any HTTPS stuff, I do HTTP stuff. I do Insomnia normally. But yeah, this is Nitro, part of Chili Cream's tool suite. That all good. Um, yeah, I normally use Insomnia if I'm doing HTTP. HTTP list screen design. What else is in there? There's nothing really of value in there, right? Oh, phase and state. Those are important things to understand there. So these will just be string values, right? And those will match up to the enumeration on the back end. If you're interested in continuing any conversations about this, if you want to know more about what I do, how I do it, with the tools I use, there is a Discord linked in the cards below. You're more than welcome to join the Discord. We do hang out there in voice chat sometimes. Uh, yeah. I have. Do this. What I'm trying to do is make sure that I go at a decent pace here, so that I'm not producing um, uh, too much in one go from the AI perspective. So what I've just done there is I've gone to Claude. I don't share the prompt on screen all the time. It's not really anything interesting. Also, I also forget to turn it off and then start talking about stuff. um, so yeah, but all I've said is, hey, we've got GraphQL available now. The GraphQL endpoint available for the releases at this point. So let's go ahead and create the list screen. But I want to make sure that it doesn't go too far. Now we've got the Figma design, and in here you can see you can go in and add tasks and do all this. I don't want to go that fast. If I let it go and say, hey, implement this, it will implement all the features and dummy up everything. But what I've found so far is when I let it do that and I haven't got the back end pieces ready for that, it gets in a mess. And I end up changing more, or I get the stores out of whack. So I'm using NGRX Signal Store to do a lot of this, to keep it all in track on the client. And I found that it fails on those optimistic patterns. So yeah. Uh, so Adrian, your message got held because of the language. I'm going to let it. It's fine. I just blocked the language. That's all. That's a choice. But yeah, this area of development is so outside of my brain. I just feel like I have no idea. Well, you, what do you build normally? And how long have you been a developer? Right. Like, what sort of systems have you built? Are you still learning? Are you experienced? Um, have you been building, 10-year professional C right? So you're game dev, right? Game development is a very different, um, in my opinion, a very different way of developing. And I have the same feeling towards game dev, right? Um, I've tried many times. I've tried on stream many times, and I just feel out of my depth, and I struggle. And I'm, I'm at 27 years as a developer, professional developer. Um, so Twitch needs more non-game dev C# streamers. The variety is good. I will say I do look for dev streamers, and there's not a lot. There's not a lot left, I'll say. Yeah, game dev is a whole different way of thinking, of designing. There's techniques I use here that just don't fit with game dev because it's just not efficient enough for game dev, but they're efficient enough for app dev. Okay, so apparently we have a screen. That looks horrible. We have a screen. We'll worry about the rest later. Um, you know, this project is again about me learning and understanding these things, taking ideas that I've had over my career and actually trying to implement them. Because sometimes I've tried to suggest things that are like this, sometimes I've tried to do things that are like this, and I don't have the support, backing, or necessarily time to get these things done. And is this a great solution? No. Is it a workable, and I'm happy developing it? Yes, and that's what matters. So um, would I suggest it for everything? No. So yeah, it's not about, yeah, can't know everything, right? But anyway, there we go. We have a release for June 26th scheduled now. So it's in development. The state and the phase. So the phase is defining, right? We're defining this release. The state is, where is it sat right this second? Right, it's still in development. Right, it's defining the release, and it's in the uh, development state. Defining, stabilizing, released, and cancelled. So stabilizing, things are starting to come together, which should be done. Released, so you could be released, but still be you could be in staging, right? So it could be released to staging, and that's a released thing. You could be in UAT, and you could be in production, right? So once it's released to production, you're done. That's it. What I intend to do is, in this screen, is kind of track post-release as well. So any, and I haven't got a ticketing system right now, right? That's a down the line, beyond MVP thing. But the concept would be very much that you could track post-release issues against a release and track them as well. So you can. One of the things we lack insights into often is what happens when your release goes live, right? So great, we got stuff done quickly, but when did the support come in direct relation to that release? How much did any one feature create as a problem, right? So how do we track that? And I want to kind of, I don't think I'm going to have an answer for that problem, but I think it's something that I want to test and see if I can come up with a solution there. But anyway, sadly, I do not earn enough money off Twitch to live. So, chasing the holy grail of SDLC, huh? That is again, I've done a lot throughout my career. I want to get better. I want to do more. I think empowering development teams is something that I care a lot about, and that's what this is really focused on. It's actually focused on making product teams define things more clearly and allow development teams to go off and develop with trying to get the tooling a bit out of the way, right? Yeah, if you ever want to chat about this stuff, if you ever want to chat about software development in general, you have your own projects you want to show off, there is a Discord in the cards link below. You're more than welcome to join. And yeah, so everyone's doing game dev. I don't know who to raid necessarily. Huh, interesting. I don't have. So we are going to go raid AOA. AOA is a designer, um, a very talented designer, has made many apps as well. And I would highly recommend, if you are interested in the design aspect of software development, of product development, not even software development, to go and check him out. So we'll go raid at AOA. I will be back on Wednesday evening for a short time. My evenings are right now kind of shallow, but I will continue getting this release stuff worked on. And the goal would be to get this release piece working by the end of the week, at which point we're going to start getting the GitHub integration working. So things start to really take a good shape, because then it's starting to look like a real product, right? So thank you very much for joining me. Thank you for coming hanging out. I appreciate the follows, and I will be back on Wednesday. So take care all. Have a great rest of your day. I'll see you soon.